Breaking news from the nest. Things are heating up behind the scenes in Philadelphia. It looks like some important changes might be coming before the season kicks off. And as always, Howie Roseman is grinding day and night to get this team locked in and ready to fly. With him in charge, I feel a whole lot more confident. How about you? We are the reigning Super Bowl champions, and no one can take that from us. But head coach Nick Sirianni knows it'll take serious work to get back there. The road to Super Bowl 60 won't be easy, but it's within our reach. Honestly, I believe we've got the talent, the structure, and the heart. This team is built to go the distance, and I truly believe we're headed back to the big game. If you believe it too, smash that like button and comment. Go Birds! I believe. Cam Newton stirred up a lot of conversation over the weekend by saying Jalen Hurts is not a top 10 quarterback in the NFL, and this came during an Eagles training camp video that's already making waves. So let's break it all down straight to the facts and numbers. We're not here to talk in circles when we're here to settle the score. When it comes to this debate, you can't ignore the data or the trajectory of both careers, and that's exactly what we're diving into. Cam Newton, no doubt, had an explosive start. At 6 feet 5 inches, 245 pounds, he redefined the physical profile of a modern quarterback. What he did at Auburn and early on with the Panthers was electric. He had the size, the speed, the athleticism, and that cannon of an arm that had defenses frozen. In 2015, he hit his peak, an MVP season, 45 total touchdowns, and a Super Bowl appearance. But the cracks were always there. Sub 60% completion rate across his career, inconsistency with accuracy, and only 3 winning seasons as a full-time starter. That MVP season stands tall, but the body of work, it doesn't hold up the way people think it does when you zoom in. Now compare that with Jalen Hurts. This guy wasn't a number 1
pick. He was a second-rounder in 2020. The Eagles didn't hand him the keys. He earned them. Since becoming the full-time starter in 2021, the man has delivered 45 wins, 17 losses. That's more winning seasons already than Cam had in his whole career. Hurts has been a model of consistency, and while Cam was known for highlight reel runs and splashy plays, Hurts has quietly built a resume based on leadership, accuracy, and composure. Look at the head-to-head numbers from each player's first 62 starts. Hurts, 45-17 record. Cam, 30-31-1. Hurts completed 65.4% of his passes. Cam, 59.5%. Hurts has a higher passer rating, fewer interceptions, 35 versus 54, more rushing yards, and far more rushing touchdowns, 52 to Cam's 33. The numbers don't lie. Even when it comes to Pro Bowls and All-Pro selections, Hurts has already matched or passed Cam's achievements in less time, and he is what Cam never got, a Super Bowl ring and a Super Bowl MVP. But maybe the biggest difference, it's about who they are when it matters most. Hurts shows up when the lights are brightest. In 2 Super Bowl appearances, he's outplayed Patrick Mahomes, the so-called GOAT of the modern NFL. More passing yards, more rushing yards, more total touchdowns. And he's done it all without the fanfare, without making it about himself. That's a big deal in this city. That's what we love. And that's why former players like Terrell Owens and Torrey Smith came out swinging in defense of Jalen after Cam's comments. Cam had all the tools, but he lacked one thing Hurts has in abundance: consistency and leadership. Hurts is the kind of guy who told his agent to get his contract done fast, not to maximize his paycheck, but to make sure Howie Roseman had room to build a team around him. He's not interested in drama. He's interested in championships. That's the difference. Cam openly said he'd take an MVP over a Super Bowl win. Hurts, he said, money is nice, but championships are better. That's a quote that says everything. Now let's not pretend Cam didn't have talent around him in 2015. That Panthers team had 9 Pro Bowlers or All-Pro selections. Jonathan Stewart, Ryan Khalil, Cowan Short, Luke Kuechly, Thomas Davis, Josh Norman, the list goes on. Yet somehow, the narrative is that Cam carried that team on his back. He didn't, and he still came up short when it mattered most. Jalen Hurts, meanwhile, is criticized because he has a strong team. That's not a knock. That's the goal of every franchise: build a strong roster and have a quarterback who can maximize it. Hurts does that. That's what makes him elite. That's why this conversation isn't even close. We've seen Jalen beat Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, Lamar, Stafford, Herbert. He's 2-0 against Jaden Daniels in games he started and finished. He doesn't just win, he wins against the best. He doesn't just lead, he elevates everyone around him. The stats, the leadership, the results, it's all there. So, what do you think about Cam Newton's comments on Jalen Hurts? Did they hold up for you after seeing the full picture? Let me know what you think. Let's keep it going, because there's still more to unpack. When Cam Newton argues that Jalen Hurts can't be a top 10 quarterback due to the talent around him, it's a flawed stance that ignores how the NFL really works. Every elite quarterback, from Tom Brady to Patrick Mahomes, has benefited from strong support, whether it's coaching, defense, or weapons on offense. The great ones make the most of it. The ones who don't, fade out. Hurts has taken what Howie Roseman built and turned it into results. That's not a weakness. That's the job. Cam's argument becomes even shakier when you line up how Hurts performs under pressure. In clutch moments, Hurts doesn't just survive, he thrives. He's poised. He doesn't make excuses. He doesn't deflect blame. And when the stage is biggest, in the postseason, on national TV, in the Super Bowl, he plays his best football. That's what we saw against Mahomes. That's what we've seen time and again when the moment demands a leader. Hurts rises. Cam never consistently did. And let's talk about the locker room. Leadership isn't just a word, it's a culture. It's accountability. It's what turns good teams into great ones. By all accounts, Hurts is universally respected inside the Eagles building. Coaches trust him. Teammates rally around him. Opponents respect him. He doesn't chase cameras or go looking for controversy. He stays focused, and he lets his play do the talking. That's why, when the Eagles got to 2 Super Bowls in such a short time span, no one inside that building was surprised. That's what he was built for. Now, rewind back to Cam Newton's quote about preferring an MVP over a Super Bowl. That right there is all you need to know about the difference between these two guys. That's a mentality thing, a culture thing, and it matters. Hurts doesn't chase personal accolades. He wants rings. He wants banners. That's not a media soundbite. That's how he lives it. That's how he leads it. That's why guys like Terrell Owens and Torrey Smith, players who know what it takes to win, are stepping in to defend Hurts. Because they see the truth. They've lived it. And speaking of support, here's something people conveniently forget. Hurts didn't walk into this situation with everything gift-wrapped. He had to prove himself. There were people in the media calling for Gardner Minshew. There were debates about whether the Eagles should go draft another QB. Jalen had to win over this organization the hard way, by performing. And once he did, the team followed him. The city followed him. And the results followed, too. His numbers keep stacking up. 2 Pro Bowls, an All-Pro selection, a Super Bowl MVP, 52 rushing touchdowns already, which is insane at his age, and still, he's improving as a passer. Every year, he's gotten better. Every year, he adds something new to his game. That's development. That's hunger. That's the difference between a guy who flashes early like Cam and a guy who builds a legacy like Hurts. Let's go back to the stats one more time, not just because they tell the story, but because they make it impossible to argue otherwise. Jalen Hurts has already outpaced Cam Newton in career winning percentage, rushing production, passing efficiency, and postseason performance. Even fantasy football numbers favor Hurts. But more importantly, he's outshined Cam when it really counts, in games that determine